On my wedding day, I was about to slip the ring on her finger when my best man stood up and shouted, "She's been sleeping with me for months." 150 guests froze, but instead of collapsing, I just laughed and said, "Thank you for making this easier." Her smile vanished. She had no idea what I had planned next. I, 32M, stood at the altar on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, holding a ring that suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The church was packed with 150 guests, all dressed in their finest, all waiting for me to complete the ceremony. My fiancée stood across from me in her immaculate white dress, her eyes glistening with what I had once believed were tears of joy. The officiant had just asked if anyone had any objections when my best man rose from his seat. His voice cut through the chapel like a knife. He announced that she had been sleeping with him for months. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I watched my fiancée's face drain of color, watched her mouth open and close like a fish gasping for air. The guests erupted into gasps and whispers, a wave of shock rippling through the pews. Some people stood up, craning their necks to see better, to witness the catastrophe unfolding. But I didn't collapse. I didn't break down or demand explanations. Instead, I laughed. It started as a low chuckle that built into genuine laughter that echoed through the stunned silence. I looked at my best man and thanked him for making this easier. His confident expression faltered. My fiancée's tear-streaked face went from devastated to confused, then to terrified. She had no idea what I had planned next. 3 months earlier, I had noticed the small things first. The way she angled her phone away from me when texting. The sudden increase in girls' nights out. The new lingerie that I never got to see her wear. I had tried to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut, the one that told me something was fundamentally wrong. Then came the night I got home early from a business trip. I had wanted to surprise her, maybe take her out to dinner, remind ourselves why we were getting married in the first place. Instead, I found messages on her laptop that she had carelessly left open. Months of correspondence with my best man, detailing their encounters, their plans, their mockery of me. They called me clueless, laughed about how I was funding their affair with the credit card I had given her for wedding expenses. The messages went back nearly to the day after I proposed. Every romantic gesture I had made, every wedding plan we had discussed together, all of it had been happening while she was with him. I sat in my car that night, parked down the street from our apartment, and made a decision. I could have confronted her then, could have called off the wedding and moved on with my life. But the betrayal ran too deep, cut too close. I wanted them to feel a fraction of what I felt. So I started planning. The first thing I did was consult a lawyer. I needed to know my rights, needed to understand how to protect myself financially. She had been living in my apartment rent-free, using my credit cards, all under the assumption that we would be married soon and it would all become ours together. My lawyer helped me document everything, every purchase, every expense. I started keeping meticulous records. I stopped contributing to our joint wedding account and opened a new one she didn't know about. When she asked about funds for deposits, I told her my company was having cash flow issues and we needed to be careful. She complained but didn't push too hard. She was too busy spending time with him to really notice the changes. I hired a private investigator. I needed concrete proof, photographs, timestamps, everything documented. The investigator delivered more than I expected. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, even footage of them together at places she had claimed were girls' nights out. The investigator also discovered something else. She had been planning to take me for everything in the divorce she was already planning. She had consulted a lawyer of her own, discussed strategies for maximizing her settlement, talked about how she could claim emotional distress from the pressure of wedding planning. That's when I knew the wedding had to happen. If she called it off, I would be the jilted groom, potentially on the hook for various expenses and deposits we couldn't recover. If I called it off without proof of her infidelity being public, she could claim I had led her on, wasted her time, damaged her reputation. But if the truth came out during the ceremony itself, in front of everyone who mattered in our lives, the narrative would be entirely different. I approached my best man 2 weeks before the wedding. I told him I knew everything and laid out the evidence. He went pale, started stammering excuses about how it just happened, how they didn't mean for it to go this far. I cut him off and made him an offer. On the wedding day, he would stand up during the ceremony and confess everything publicly. In exchange, I wouldn't press charges for the money he had stolen from me. Yes, The investigator had discovered he had been skimming from our shared business account, small amounts he thought I wouldn't notice. He tried to refuse at first, said it was cruel and unnecessary. I reminded him about the embezzlement, about how a criminal record would destroy his career in finance. I also mentioned that I had already sent the evidence to several mutual friends and family members, time to arrive the morning after the wedding. If he confessed publicly, I would recall those messages. If he didn't, everyone would find out anyway, and he would face legal consequences on top of social ruin. He agreed, though he looked like he might vomit. As for the wedding itself, I had made several key modifications. The photographer and videographer were under strict instructions to capture everything, especially any dramatic moments. I had arranged for the footage to be live-streamed to a private channel that my lawyer was monitoring. Every penny spent on the wedding would be documented as evidence of her fraud. I had also taken care of the financial details. The venue was paid for with money from my new private account, not our joint funds. Same with the catering, the flowers, everything. She thought she was planning a wedding on our dime, but in reality, I was creating an elaborate stage for her exposure. The guest list was particularly important. Her parents were there, front row, beaming with pride. My parents sat across from them, aware of what was coming because I had told them the week before. I couldn't let them be blindsided. They wanted to stop the wedding, but I convinced them this was necessary, that she needed to face consequences in front of everyone who had celebrated our relationship. Standing at that altar, watching my best man deliver his confession, I saw everything I had planned coming together. My fiancée grabbed my arm, started begging me to let her explain, saying it wasn't what it sounded like. Her voice was desperate, pleading. I gently removed her hand from my arm and stepped back. I addressed the crowd, my voice calm and steady. I explained that I had known for months. I told them how I had discovered the affair, how I had investigated and found proof of not just infidelity, but financial betrayal as well. I detailed how she had been using my money to fund her affair, how she had been planning to divorce me after the wedding and take me for everything she could. Her mother let out a wail. Her father stood up, his face purple with rage, though I couldn't tell if it was directed at me or his daughter. My fiancée dropped to her knees, still in that expensive wedding dress I had paid for, and started sobbing. She swore she loved me, that it was a mistake, that she would do anything to make it right. I turned to the officiant and informed him there would be no wedding. I thanked the guests for coming and apologized for wasting their time. Then I announced that the reception hall was still booked and the food was still prepared, and everyone was welcome to stay and enjoy it. After all, everything was already paid for, and it seemed a shame to let it go to waste. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some people rushed forward, trying to console my ex-fiancée. Others surrounded me, asking if I was okay, expressing shock and support. A few headed straight for the exits, clearly wanting no part of the drama. My best man tried to slip away, but several of our mutual friends cornered him, demanding explanations. I walked down the aisle alone, my head held high. Behind me, I could hear her screaming my name, calling me cruel, calling me a monster. Maybe I was, but I had given her months of normalcy while she betrayed me. This one day of public humiliation felt like a fair exchange. The reception hall was surreal. About half the guests showed up, mostly out of curiosity or because they genuinely wanted to support me. The DJ, unsure what to do, played generic upbeat music. People gathered in small groups, whispering and casting glances at me. I stood near the bar, accepting condolences and pats on the back, feeling simultaneously vindicated and empty. My father approached me, asked if I was truly okay. I told him I would be, eventually. He said what I did took courage, though he wasn't sure it was the right kind of courage. I appreciated his honesty. My mother hugged me tightly and whispered that she was proud of me for not letting myself be made a fool, even if my methods were unconventional. Update 1. The aftermath hit harder than I expected. Within hours, the story spread across social media. Someone had recorded the confession and my response on their phone, and it went viral in our social circles. I received hundreds of messages, split between support and condemnation. Some people praised me for standing up for myself and exposing the truth publicly. Others called me vindictive and cruel, saying I should have handled it privately. My ex-fiancée tried calling me dozens of times that first night. When I didn't answer, she sent long, rambling texts alternating between apologies and accusations. She said I had humiliated her beyond repair, destroyed her reputation, and traumatized her family. She claimed she had made a mistake, but that I had turned it into a public execution. I didn't respond to any of it. My former best man sent a single text apologizing and saying he would transfer back the money he had taken. I replied with my lawyer's contact information and told him to arrange repayment through official channels. He never reached out personally again, though I heard through mutual friends that he had quit his job and moved to a different city. The legal cleanup was extensive. My lawyer helped me recover most of the money she had spent on the affair. Since we weren't married, her claims to any of my assets were minimal. The joint account we had shared was drained by her in the days following the canceled wedding, but I had already moved my money out weeks before. She got away with a few $1,000s at most, far less than she had planned. Her parents tried to meet with me 2 weeks after the incident. They showed up at my apartment unannounced, looking haggard and desperate. Her father asked if we could talk, said there had to be a way to fix this, that their daughter was devastated and not eating or sleeping. I told them through the door that their daughter was an adult who had made her choices, and I had made mine. I suggested they focus on helping her move forward rather than trying to resurrect something that should have never been. The hardest part was the mutual friends. Our social circle essentially exploded. Some people sided with me completely, cutting her and my ex-best man out of their lives. Others thought I had gone too far and distanced themselves from me. A surprising number tried to remain neutral, which felt like a betrayal in itself. How do you stay neutral when someone lies and cheats for months? I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects and responsibilities. My colleagues knew something had happened, but didn't press for details. The routine helped, gave me something to focus on besides the wreckage of my personal life. My performance actually improved, and I received a promotion 3 months later, which felt like a small victory. Update 2. 6 months after the wedding that never was, I started therapy. I had convinced myself I was fine, that my revenge had been cathartic and I could move on. But the truth was I felt hollow. The satisfaction of exposing her had faded quickly, leaving behind a profound sense of loss. Not loss of her specifically, but loss of what I thought we had, loss of the future I had envisioned. My therapist helped me understand that betrayal trauma is real and valid. She didn't judge my actions at the wedding, but encouraged me to explore why I felt public humiliation was necessary. Through our sessions, I realized I had been trying to balance the scales, to make her feel as small and foolish as I had felt reading those messages. But humiliation doesn't actually heal anything. It just spreads the pain around. I thought about reaching out to apologize for the public spectacle, but my therapist advised against it. She explained that reopening communication would likely hurt both of us more than help. The best thing I could do was focus on my own healing and let her do the same. Around this time, I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my relationship. We started having weekly dinners, going to sporting events, just existing without the weight of drama. They never asked about what happened unless I brought it up, which I appreciated. Slowly, life started feeling normal again. I also started dating casually, nothing serious. Just coffee dates and casual conversations, reminding myself that connection was still possible. Trust was harder. I found myself analyzing everything, looking for red flags that probably weren't there. My therapist said this was normal and would fade with time. One evening, I ran into her at a grocery store. We made eye contact across the produce section, and for a moment, neither of us moved. She looked different, tired but somehow lighter. I nodded politely and turned down another aisle. My heart was pounding, but I didn't feel the rage I expected. I just felt sad for both of us. She texted me that night, said seeing me had brought up a lot of emotions. She wrote that she had been in therapy too, working through her own issues. She didn't ask for forgiveness or try to justify what she did. She simply said she hoped I was doing well and that she was genuinely sorry for the pain she caused. I read the message several times before responding. I thanked her for the apology and told her I hoped she found peace. Then I deleted the conversation. Update 3. A year after the wedding, I was in a completely different place. I had sold the apartment we had shared and bought a small house across town. New neighborhood, new routines, new life. The promotion at work had opened doors, and I was traveling more, meeting new people, rediscovering who I was outside of a relationship. I started a new relationship with someone I met through a work conference. She knew nothing about my past initially, which felt refreshing. When I eventually told her the story, she listened without judgment and simply asked if I had healed from it. I told her I was still working on it, and she said that was good enough for her. Looking back, I don't regret exposing the truth. They were planning to betray me in far worse ways, and I protected myself from that. But I do regret the cruelty of it, the public nature of the humiliation. I could have achieved the same outcome with less collateral damage. The people at that wedding didn't need to witness that spectacle. I could have simply called it off privately and moved on. My ex-fiancé, I heard through scattered social media posts, eventually moved to another state and started over. My ex-best man apparently did the same. I don't keep tabs on either of them anymore. Their lives are no longer my concern. The wedding ring I never placed on her finger sits in a safe deposit box. I'm not sure why I kept it. Maybe as a reminder, maybe as a symbol of lessons learned. Either way, it's locked away where it belongs, part of a chapter that's finally closed. I'm not the same person who stood at that altar. Betrayal changes you, hardens certain parts while opening others. I'm more cautious now, but also more authentic. I don't settle for surface-level connections anymore. I demand honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, and I give the same in return. The story still circulates occasionally, especially in our old social circles. I've become a cautionary tale or a hero, depending on who's telling it. But I've learned that other people's narratives don't define my reality. I know what happened, I know why I made the choices I did, and I'm learning to live with all of it. If I could go back, I'm not sure I would change anything. The wedding day revelation was extreme, but it gave me closure in a way a private conversation never could. Everyone who mattered saw exactly who she was, exactly what they both were capable of. There was no ambiguity, no he said, she said. Just raw, unfiltered truth. And sometimes, that's the only revenge that really matters.